in these ramifications. The opening ceremony got concluded just a few hours ago. We'll take a beam at that and look at how Team Nigeria will get through on this edition of the Olympic Games. It is actually the 33rd edition, and we'll see how Team Nigeria will perform. When we return from the break, we'll get you the details and many more here on Atlantic Television Network. Welcome back. It's Sports Extraordinary Weekend edition here on Atlantic Television Network, and this weekend it is special. I have with me Kingsley Marwa. Kingsley, nice to have you.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. Very happy to be here this weekend.
Network permitting, we should be joined by China Achiro, of course, one man who should know it to a large extent here when it comes to the Olympic Games. It's a special weekend. This is a weekend where the Olympic Games, Paris 2024, has gotten underway in France. The opening ceremony could as best be described as very colorful. We saw a few hours ago. This weekend, Kingsley, we understand over 200 countries are out there in Paris as part of these Olympic Games. And what do you make of it?
For me, I think it was really, especially if talking about the opening ceremony, it was really colorful, just like you described it. Down there, we saw, different countries, coming up with their flag, and this particular Olympic game, is actually different from the others we used to see. This time around, the opening ceremony was being done, in the Seine River, and it was, very colorful. It actually brought more color to the game, and we saw, different countries, in the boat. We saw about 85 boats in the opening ceremony, and we saw those, in the boats, raising up their flag, and of course, it was very, very colorful. And talk about, dignitaries that were there. We saw Thomas Bach, the chairman of the International Olympic Committee. We also saw the president for France, Emmanuel Macron, as well, was also there. And the event was also being graced by top music stars like the likes of Celine Dion. Also got Lady Gaga as well. You talk about Novak Djokovic, Rafa Nadal, Serena Williams. They were all there. We saw Zidane also having the final touch, being the final torch bearer down there, and the likes of Serena Williams and Rafa Nadal was very, very colorful. And I think for me, the next Olympic, talking about Los Angeles 2028, they have to really up their game to see how they can meet up with what France did in that opening ceremony we saw. So for me, I think was really, really eventful and colorful, and of course we'll also look forward to see the Olympic Games being more colorful proper.
Talking about the Olympic Games being very colorful, and that is the opening ceremony of the 2024 Olympic Games. I must tell you, Paris has been described as a city of lights, and if you watched the opening ceremony yesterday, or you were anywhere around Paris, you know that Paris indeed is a city of light. There was a lot of lighting experience, and everything was reduced to light, from the river Seine where the ceremony took place to the background, which is the Eiffel Tower. It was really, really very colorful and littered, well littered.
Very, very well littered, from what was saw. Everywhere was colorful, different colors of lights. And I think they actually use it, of course, to actually portray what they wanted. I think the organizer of the opening ceremony, talk about, I think, Thomas Jury, he was able, of course, to plan this particular one very, very well. And for me, it was really befitting, taking a look at the way they made this one, happen. It was really, really, exciting. I think for me, Paris did so well. They actually took their time to make sure they get, prepared for this particular one. They took a lot of time, to see how they can actually.
This is the first time, actually, we are having an Olympic opening ceremony outside of the stadium. Kingsley, we had the whole stretch of the River Seine, out there being used, and boats. Like we mentioned, that nearly 200 boats were in use, for this one. Most of the contingents were on board boats sailing from one point to the other. And still looking at that, like I mentioned, we've never seen an opening ceremony in all of the Olympic Games being outside of a stadium. So this is the first time it is happening. What impact do you think this, has across the world? Now, especially with the culture of the French people taking advantage of, okay, you don't need to spend money, to build a new stadium, for opening ceremony of the Olympic Games, yes, which we have seen in the past.
Yes, for me, I think it's another direction, another level of creativity, from the organizers, this time around, trying most kind, of course, to cut costs. I will understand that this particular Olympic game is one of the cheapest, from the ones, of course, we've seen, due to the fact that France, they already have some of the infrastructure, to host. So they didn't spend much in terms of, putting more of the infrastructure in place in hosting this particular one. And for that, taking a look at what happened at the Seine River was very, very colorful. We saw about 3,000 people at the river bank, and some people, of course, at about 2,000 people at the balconies as well. So for me, it actually brought more beauty, to the Paris Olympic game, looking at the fact that they have to cut costs, but they also have to bring up that means of also making the events more colorful and more beautiful. And I think for me it was actually a very good idea. And for me, maybe other countries probably might actually adopt this, but it is not an easy one. You have to be well equipped. The boats, of course, have to be well intact, and everywhere, of course, has to be in place to make sure that you have an event, such as what we saw at the Paris Olympic game. It actually took a high level of creativity, for we to see all of that. And we must actually commend the organizers for putting up such a befitting opening ceremony.
Just before we get back to the opening ceremony of the 2024 Olympic Games, pre the opening ceremony, some of the visitors and officials that were supposed to be part of the opening ceremony were somehow delayed in arriving in Paris because of a security threat. There was some kind of sabotage at the train stops, stations, so that most of the traveling arrangement had to be rescheduled several hours after they were supposed to have moved because of what they call a terrorist attack at the rail stations.
Yes, for me, I think that's
in spite of the heavy security presence.
In spite of the heavy security presence, and I think that's why we actually we talked about this earlier, where when we take a look at the security level down there in Paris, we understand that there was a high level of security arrangements, and despite that, we actually saw all of this. Don't forget, the city down there in Paris. Talk about Paris. We've seen this terrorist attack, and all of that for some time, especially since we actually saw the election, of course, and there were a lot of terrorist attack and all of that, and that's why they actually make sure that there's high level of security in this particular Paris Olympic game. And from what we saw, I was able, at least
we are told that about 45,000 policemen were on duty on the night, and the 10,000 soldiers as well, not minding 2,000 guards that were added to it. But it looks like that yes, the opening ceremony itself was quiet, but pre-opening ceremony had some security skirmishes, but it only delayed the arrival of some of the train at the city of Paris. Well, let's look at the ceremony itself now, Kingsley. It took 3.5 hours for this ceremony to be completed. And of these 3.5 hours, there was a heavy downpour for 1 hour.
Yes, that was what Lucas as if this was going to take away the beauty or the shine of the Paris Olympic Game. But despite despite the rain, I think some of the events where they still have carried out most of the events. We saw Celine Dion, coming up on stage. We also saw Lady Gaga also coming up on stage as well. And all of this, of course, was still under the rain. Even some of the countries that were in the boats, were also still under the rain. But despite all of that, I think
we saw a situation where some of the dancers were sleeping, because it was slippery. Yeah. The surface was slippery, but again, it didn't matter. It didn't take the shine off it. I think some people say it was some kind of shower of blessing for the city of Paris and the Olympic Games. But this has entered into the history book as the most drenched opening ceremony in the history of the Olympic Games. We've never seen an opening ceremony that saw such just a volume of rain that lasted for over an hour. Let's look at the dignitaries that were there. Of course, everybody knows that lighting of the torch is it, but let's look at the dignitaries that were there. During we had some remarkable torch bearers like Zinedine Zidane. Of course, you know him very well because of his exploit with the French national football team. We won the World Cup with France. There was Rafael Nadal. Rafael Nadal, of course, the man with the 23 Grand Slams in the tennis title. There was Serena Williams as well. We saw him alongside Rafael Nadal. Then the legendary Carl Lewis, one of the most recognized speed stars in the history of the Olympic Games, 100 meters, and of course Tony Parker as well. It's usual to find heavyweights, or do I say former stars, come to the Olympic Games, but this looks like a galaxy of former stars, both at the Olympic Games and other sports.
Yeah, definitely. And if you take a look at most of the stars, there are people who have done, great things, for the French, for France, as a country. You take a look at Zidane, one man, of course, who has actually done a lot, for the French national team, football national team as well. And for Rafael Nadal, is a man who has won a lot of, Grand Slam down there talking about Roland Garros, the man has won a lot. And for Serena Williams as well, out of the 23 titles, she won in her career, she won, I think, 3. She won about 3 French Open titles as well. So it was, worthy enough. Yes, worthy enough, to have, them, of course, grace the events. And for me, was something very huge, of course, to see them. And it was the fans, were very, very elated, to see them, of course, holding the torch at the end of the day.
Well, an opening ceremony at the French Paris Olympic Games there just a few hours ago. It looked like a very colorful weekend, I must say, because of what we saw out there in Paris. And let's further look at it. It was a galaxy of stars. That's my own word. Lady Gaga was there. Celine Dion was there at the opening ceremony in spite of her health conditions. It didn't show up as well.
Yeah, it didn't show up as well. I think she actually, put up a revelation, after her performance down there. She said she was able to get, the best of doctors to actually take care of her, and that's why she was able to, honor that particular invitation, to come, put up that performance down there in the Paris opening ceremony. For me, I was such, of course, an impressive one. To see Celine Dion, coming back, of course, to stage. And what a way, of course, for her to bounce back, to stage as well. We saw the likes of Lady Gaga and also Beyonce. She was the one who actually introduced the United States of American team. And for me, it was actually very, very befitting, of course, to watch. And we look forward to see, what, of course, the Olympic Games, of course, hold. Because from what we've seen already, is to tell you that, there is more in this particular Olympic Games.
More to come in this Olympic Games ongoing in Paris. But looking at the opening ceremony and its reaction, we will still bring you snippets of what we saw at that opening ceremony. Let's look at Team Nigeria. Team Nigeria was on board that boat with Niger and Norway. They were the 3 contingents. They were in that boat where we saw the famous green, white, green Nigerian flag. What was the memory that came to you when that happened? But just before we get to that memory, it's still worthy to note that the Paris Olympic Games has recorded her very, very first gold medal, and it's coming from shooting. We'll get to that in a short while, but breaking at this point is that shooting is the very first gold medal won, and it was the People's Republic of China that got that very first gold medal at the Paris 2024 Olympic Games. And returning back to the opening ceremony, which is rated as the most colorful in the history of Olympic opening ceremony, we saw a lot of stars, on showcase. But let's narrow it down now to Team Nigeria. Quite a number of Nigerian athletes on board that boat at Riverside a few hours ago.
Yes, quite a number of them were actually on board. We saw the likes of Toby Amuson, the flag bearer of the country. Oluwaluwapo Okweri, of course, the captain for the team as well. They were down there, of course, putting up that flag, for Team Nigeria. It was actually very beautiful, of course, to watch. And the same Team Nigeria, it's a very colorful and colorful attire. And I think for me was a very, very huge one, of course, to behold. And I would just hope that with the way they appeared, they will also be able to compete in that level as well. Though some news coming from some angles that the D Tigers, some of the D Tigers players, of course, were not allowed to enter the boat, but that's just by the wayside. But from what we saw, take a look at the outing of Team Nigeria with the beautiful attire, Toby Amuson, Ololuwapo, and the rest of them, of course, in that boat, I think for me was a very, very colorful one as well.
Talking about Team Nigeria on board the boat with Niger Republic and Norway, something interesting, we understand that the Nigerian female basketball team could not board that boat, understandably, because there were a lot of people on board the boat, and so the basketball team of Nigeria was declined, refused to be part of that opening ceremony. I don't know what you think, Kingsley. Do you think there should have been a proper arrangement to at least have representatives of maybe the basketball team, on board that boat? At least they should know the capacity of the boat and how many athletes should be on board the boat. But this team, it took the basketball team nearly 2 hours plus to travel from Lille, where they were camped, to come to Paris, yet they did not fulfill their mission of getting on board that boat.
Yes, for me, I think that was actually very disappointing first, for them to actually take up that journey and then couldn't actually fulfill, what they came to do. And for me, I think the organizers, of course, should have probably, of course, get to know how many persons would be able to, with the boats, contain before they actually, of course, make put up that call, for them to come. So for me, I think for me it was very disappointing. The arrangements was not done proper, and from what we saw, we just hope that, of course, the players won't take it upon themselves or probably being disappointed, because we don't really want a bad omen in this particular Olympic game. Let's not, take it in another way that we're just starting and then we're having negative mind, and all of that. I think for me, they should actually take it very easy and see how they can get to it. It's what it is. After all, it's not all the athletes, of course, will be we're supposed to, of course, get into the boat, and all of that. So for me, I think was disappointing one, first of all, from the organizers not being able to put up a very huge high level of calculation to see how many persons, of course, will that boat contain before calling up on the other girls. But it is what it is. We just hope to move on from that. The main thing is the game. We're not there, of course, just to parade in the boat, but to get the medals. The medals are what is very, very important, at this point in time. And I think for me, the D Tigers, they shouldn't probably make this to be a worry for them, because when you take a look at the group where they are in the Olympic game, they are in a very, very tough group, and they have to make sure that they take away anything that will bring any distraction or probably put up an ugly minds between them. So they should have to focus and see what, of course, they can achieve this time around.
Nigerian female basketball team denied entry on board the boats that had to showcase at the opening ceremony of the basketball of the Olympic Games ongoing in Paris. We understand because of that, they had to miss their morning training section as well this weekend. They returned back to the hotel. They couldn't join the departing team, and so they missed it. For me, again, I think that looks like some kind of logistic problem. They didn't meet up to enter the boat in Paris. Then they could not as well board the boat. The vehicle that took them all the way, that should have taken them to Lille, venue of the camp, or where they will have to play their match in the next few hours.
Those kind of, yes, a logistic problem, you say. They had a last They had the last warm-up friendly game, which was against Japan, and they had to finish that one before they could rush down, to the opening ceremony. And I think for me, that would have just they would have probably tried to see how they can actually make that one very snappy and then move, down to the event just to get make sure that the players, of course, have to rest properly before heading down, of course, for training. I think for me, this is not the time, we should be having all of this theory. I think for what we've seen so far, the preparation down here at home has been top-notch. We should go out there and be able to get the job, done, in a very nice way. This is not where the D-Tigers, of course, should be complaining or anything. They should give them that opportunity to be able to prepare themselves mentally, and emotionally, so that they can be able to compete. Like I mentioned, they are in a very tough group, so they don't need any distraction. So for me, it was another disappointing one, but we hope this won't be, of course, a distraction to the girls.
Well, it's Sports Extraordinary here, weekend edition on Atlantic Television Network, and we're looking at the Paris 2024 Olympic Games. It got underway a few hours ago in an official opening ceremony. Before the opening ceremony, we've seen a couple of events take place pre the opening ceremony, and we'll bring you an update on what has happened so far at the Olympic Games and what we expect to happen, especially what Team Nigeria, what are the expectations of Team Nigeria, what do Nigerians want, expect from their team that is already at the Paris Olympic Games as well. All of this will come to you when we return from the break.
Greenwoods went for goal. Goalkeeper missed it. He does a right hand and down goes the ball straight away. That's where oh, what a point to end it on. So now this is when they're at their best. That's when they're 12 years for this. So drink it in. Still goes through on New Zealand. What he loves to be immortality as an athlete. 19.79. It's a goal. It's 8 goals.
From the line across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains, through the Sahara, we bring on sport news, live analysis, expert discussions on trending stories in politics, business, socio-economy, sports, and documentaries. So catch all the updates on the happenings around the globe. Stay focused on the fact today. Only on ATN.
People into the country illegally. That is amazing.
Honorable
you human trafficker. Honorable you understand.
So no agreement with the EU, but
every day our lives are changed by history.
We are one people, all of us.
Leaders, politics.
Nobody's ambition is what's the blood.
I have fought very firmly.
Natural occurrence, war, and the world economy.
I belong to everybody, and I belong to nobody.
ATN covers it all on ATN Politics today.
I hope nobody. Hello.
Why you ask? Oh?
Because this road where they see, so you no guarantee safe delivery. Oh.
Welcome back. It's Sports Extra on a weekend edition here on Atlantic Television Network. This weekend is special because we're looking at the Paris 2024 Olympic Games. The opening ceremony got underway a few hours ago, and it was so colorful. What has been described as the most colorful opening ceremony at the Olympic Games outside of the stadium along the River Seine in France, and it looked so colorful. Indeed, France, Paris to be specific, is a city of light. Now let's look at Team Nigeria particularly. A lot is expected from Team Nigeria. Kingsley, 88 athletes will represent Nigeria at the Olympic Games. They will be competing in 12 sports. Let's narrow it down now. What are the expectations for Team Nigeria? If you remember, Nigeria has been at the Olympics for the last 72 years. Yes, in the last 72 years. Our first appearance at the Olympics was way back in Helsinki in 1952, if I'm not mistaken. And since then, Nigeria have participated in 17 Olympic games. I know very well that of these 17 Olympic games, Nigeria virtually had laurels in maybe about just 10 or thereabout. But first, before we'll take a peep at history now, let's look at Team Nigeria, 88 athletes, 12 sports discipline. What are the expectations from Nigerians back home and in diaspora?
For me, I think a lot of expectation from Team Nigeria this time around, because take a look at the last time we participated at the Olympics, that was in Tokyo. We came back with just 2 medals, 1 bronze and 1 silver medal. That was a very poor performance, for Team Nigeria. So far, so good, just like you mentioned, since 1952, since Nigeria started participating.
72 years?
72, and 72 years, we've only amassed 27 medals, and out of those 27, just 3 are gold medals. And this time around, when you take a look at the preparation at home, and as well the support from the sport ministry, I think before they actually departed, the President Ahmed Bola Tinubu actually doled out 12 billion naira to make sure that the preparation, everything, of course, is actually smooth, And for me, I think
yeah, you talked about 12 billion naira doled out by the presidency, for sports, but it looks to me like misplaced, because if you look at other countries, the United States of America, Australia, China, Spain, you know, they invest in sports development over a period of time. It's not waiting for, you know, when it's competition time or date, you now release money. That money does not solve problems, as long as I'm concerned, because these monies are supposed to go into preparation, you know, competition, preparing the athletes, discovering the athletes, nurturing them to stardom, putting them through competitions and all of that. Then it makes meaning. But when you just release money, you know, on the eve of the event or thereabout, it doesn't solve any problem. So it goes down to seeing a situation where this money is just shared, you know, and hoping that another one will be shared in another 4 years. The Olympics is every 4 years. And for those who win medals, there's no way an Olympic medalist can be groomed in just a period of 4 years. Sometimes it takes as many as 20 years or thereabout, 12 years to prepare an Olympic medalist. You know, so when you just bring money, maybe a month, 2 months to an event, an Olympic proper, it doesn't seem to go down well.
I agree. You know, I think for me, you know, we've always, that's been our culture for some time, you know, where we don't prepare, you know, in time. I think when you talk about preparation for the Olympic Games, I think it was just about, you know, 5 months ago, thereabout, we started preparing and started talking about Olympics, you know. And this time around, we've actually, of course, maybe from what we've seen and from what we've done so far, look like a better preparation for us. But I tell you, when you take a look at countries like China, you take a look at countries like the United States of America, Japan, you know, and the rest of them. These are countries that take time to prepare. The Olympic, of course, okay, will end August. And before you know, come next year or even after the event, you know, they start preparing athletes for the next 4 years. So, but in us, we take about 6 months, you know, to prepare, you know, or thereabout, and we expect to give the best. You can never give what you don't have. That's what, of course, that's what's in nature, you know, that's how nature put it. So for me, it's actually not a very good approach whereby we prepare late, you know, whenever we want to go for competitions like this. Money are being doled out late, you know, for preparation and all of that. So it's actually a setback for us, and I think it's then time for we to look forward to change that narrative and see how we can as well, you know, prepare just like other countries, and of course are preparing. Just like we're talking, China, of course, was the one that first gold medal in shooting. Are we even participating in such sports? No, that's all about, you know, preparation. We're talking about early preparation matters and things like this. And for this, despite, you know, the late preparation for what we've seen so far, I think a lot of expectation are still on the athletes, because we have about 87 or even 88 athletes, you know, at this point in time. They should be able to go down there and mass, you know, medals, compete with the very best. And with this, a lot of pressure on them, because they're going to be competing with athletes that have been training, getting themselves prepared for a very long time. Not just the national trials we had and the African Championship and maybe some others that will really help us. I think there should have been proper training for a very long time for these athletes before we get down there. So for me, I think it's a disturbing one, because the athletes are the one now on pressure. I think the other day, the Nigerian Olympic Committee Secretary General Tunde Popola came up to say that, you know, that the expectation is actually 12 medals. That is not convinced which is going to be the color, if it's going to be gold, silver, or bronze, but that at least the athletes will be coming back with 12 medals. For me, which is actually a very poor expectation. How can you be going to the Olympics with about 88 athletes and you're expecting just 12 medals? For me, it's a very poor target, and I think they should be able to amass, you know, more than that, you know, at the end of the day. So a lot of expectation on them, and we look forward to see what they will be coming back home with this time around.
Team Nigeria at the Olympic Games, 88 athletes competing in 12 sports disciplines, and the last Olympic Games there was no medal.
Yeah, they came back 2 medals.
2 medals, and this time around we don't know how many medals. But let's look at. I ask you this question, Kesley. Where would the medal come from? Is it coming from? Like we mentioned, we are competing in 12 sports disciplines: boxing, athletics,
canoeing,
cycling, and the rest of them. Where most likely would the medals come from? Is it from track and field?
Yeah, because that's where the strength lies. Track and field, wrestling is also one another aspect, another sport that we can actually boast of. Weightlifting is also another sport we can boast of, you know, having medals at this point. For sport like canoeing, I don't really see our strengths there. For sport like cycling, if we talk about cycling, we don't even do much. For badminton, yes, we'll have the very best. Oluwaluwapo Perry. This is his back-to-back appearance at the Olympic Games. We should be able to be a little bit confident. For table tennis, it's somehow, of course, scary because Aruna Quadri is the only one, of course, everyone is hoping at this point in time to see what he can do. But how far can he go when we have, of course, the best, Omar Hassan, the rest of them, the Chinese players from China and the rest of them. So it's going to be very tough. But for me, I expect at least, from the track and field, we have very good athletes down there, the likes of Toby Amusan, Favor Ophili, of course, is also there. It's Brume. You talk about the rest of them. We have good athletes, on ground that can possibly, of course, churn out those medals for us. So I'm really banking on athletics. I'm banking on weightlifting. I'm banking on wrestling and as well, badminton. For sport like basketball, for the Tigers, of course, taking a look at the group they are, you don't give them that much of an assurance. For the Super Falcons, it looks like a very tall mountain as well.
Nigeria has had, Nigeria's female basketball team has the best record in terms of African teams at the basketball. I'm sorry, at the Olympic Games. We won our first game against, I think that was against Korea, way back in a qualification game of Zamin, which was the 11th place team at the Olympic Games. Where like I mentioned, track and field. It's been an area where yes, we've had our fault. We've won, colors. Medals of all color. We won gold courtesy of a default. You remember when Asiva was turned to gold by the organizers because the United States team that won gold, was faulted for taking drugs. But have we consciously, worked on this area of athletics? Okay, well, we are strong here, so let's continue to make more medals from this area. Because for me, it looks like we've not really worked on it. Way back in 1984, when we first won in track and field, we don't seem to have improved so much on it after that 1984 experience.
Of course, for me, I think there is no conscious acts in terms of developing, the athletes on track and field. Though we've seen some kind of conscious gesture.
It looks to me, it doesn't look like corporate. It looks like individual because if you look at it, the innocent Ibunikis and the names, the Mario Yalis and all of these were people who, yes, with little support from their federation, they were on their own. It wasn't a conscious effort. Okay, we discovered, unlike what we're having now. Yes, we have maybe the Favor Phillies and the rest. They are sent through school, sponsored and groomed. We don't seem to have more of such effort. That's what I mean.
Yeah, that's what I actually said, that the consciousness is there, but not that active. That's what that's why I say it is actually there, but not very active. If not because of Sunday Dari that came up, I think that was last night, and brought up their adopt, a school athletes, initiative. This thing that he brought up, that we saw the likes of Toby Amusan benefiting from it. Favor Ophili also benefited, from that particular one, and they were actually and some athletes also benefited, and they were able to, school abroad and also get to train as well. I think for me, we wouldn't have been talking about these athletes, today. So for me, if you take a look at it,
because if you look at it, sorry to cut you there. If you look at it, it's sports like boxing. This was the area where Nigeria first had a medal, at the Olympic Games.
Yes.
And way back 1964, that was when we had our first medal, and thereafter we had subsequent medals in boxing. In the 1984 Olympic Games, we had medals in boxing. In the 1992 Olympic Games, 1990, we had medals, but boxing seemed not to be completely relegated to the background. I'm not too sure we have any boxer at the Olympic Games.
Yeah, we have. We have about 3 boxers.
One boxer that you expect that will return with medals?
No.
That's a question I'm asking.
No, not really. Returning with medals, there's no 100% assurance that they might be returning with medals. They were actually 4. One actually got injured and have to drop. So I think we have about 3 now, in this particular Olympic game. But what's the assurance of coming back with a medal? I think for me, is almost, will I say, 5%, if you ask me, at this point, because I'm not really sure that the boxers we have on ground, can possibly go down.
Yeah, the only reason why you're not sure of the boxers you have on ground is because these boxers don't be properly conditioned. You won't see them in tournaments, that where they have performed. They have been largely, reduced to just maybe training materials. We want to see boxers, properly conditions, take part in tournaments leading up to the Olympic Games and championships that will give hope to say yes, they have the quality.
Yes, for me, I think it's been a long time we've seen boxers down here in Nigeria put up in a very impressive performance. The last time we saw the Boxing Federation coming up with a very impressive performance, I think was this year. Yes, at the African Championship, we saw some of the boxers, churning out, medals, and that actually elevated the hope that, boxing is coming back to limelight. But from what we're seeing, the preparation for boxing ahead of these Olympics have not been that, very top notch.
After the 1992 Olympic Games, where we saw boxers like Richard Ibinebu win silver medal, we saw David Zorinte win silver medal at the Barcelona Olympic Games. As a build-up to what happened in 1984 when we saw Elijah Peter Koekwachi, win, silver medal or bronze medal as well. We've not seen, conscious effort at developing these boxers, and I'm getting really worried. Yes, 12 sports discipline, boxing included, but we cannot readily say, yes, we are returning with a medal, and the kind of hope we had, in the early 80s or middle 80s and in the 90s. We need to see that back again now. Okay, looking at the other sports now, 12 of them. A lot of people believe that if there will be a medal for Nigeria at the Olympic Games for 2024, it will be Toby Amusu in the long jump event.
Yeah, that's the hurdles events, and I think yes, everyone is actually looking at Toby Amusan because she's actually the eyes of where everyone is actually looking forward to at this point in time. Taking a look at what she has been able to do for herself, what record holder, a lot of expectation, of course, on her, and we hope that she won't disappoint this time around. And take a look at her preparation so far. I think it's been a little bit, impressive. And we hope that, she's going to go down there and make sure that she do the needful. Another athlete, of course, we should be looking forward to get a medal from is Chukwuebuka Nokochi in the shot put. Remember, at the African Championship, he put up another record, even at the national trials down here. The man has been, up and doing of recent, and I think he can also replicate that same gesture at the Olympic Games. We should be looking forward to see something from Brume. We talk about wrestling as well. Blessing Oboro is one name that rings bell when it has to do with wrestling. Last time she was able to pick a silver medal, and I think this time she will be able to probably to go further to see if she can get a gold medal. Dunaya Adekoye is one lady we'll also be looking out for as well in the wrestling event, and I think for me, these athletes, on ground, at least we should be assured of 5 medals from these athletes, I just mentioned, and I'll actually look at the rest to also amass medals in their different events. In weightlifting, we should also be looking forward to get medal because I think weightlifting, they've always been up and doing in most of the Olympic events we've participated in. And I think with this, athletes and federations being on ground, we should be able to at least amass medals, from this particular sport we've mentioned. For canoeing, like I mentioned earlier, no much hope. For cycling, I don't see much hope down there. For badminton, we should be assured that Anoluwa Kwekperi might also come up with something. So for me, I think with this athlete on ground, we should be at least, be hopeful of, let's say, 10 or more medals.
Well, Team Nigeria at the Olympic Games needs to improve on our medal standing. We told you how Nigeria has participated in 17 Olympic Games in 72 years. Yes, 17 edition of Olympic Games in all of the 72 years after that she has taken part in the Olympic Games. But returns has been paltry. Only 22 medals has been, Kinsley, you agree with me, only 22 medals.
27.
27 medals in 72 years.
Yeah.
Out of which in 17 editions is quite a low return as compared to even some African countries like Kenya that has turned in more medals on the continent.
Yes, it's actually very disappointing. Even South Africa even have more medals in the Olympics than Nigeria. So for me, it's not a very good one. When we say we're a giant of Africa, we have to replicate that in all phases, not just giant of Africa verbally. We have to show action, as it is. And I think for me, it's then time for we to wake up. Early preparation is actually very important. Sport development. Sport development is also another thing we have to look into. The infrastructure, you have to put it up. What are we doing when it has to do with sporting infrastructure in the country. The reason why some of our athletes go outside the country, of course, to get them, is because we don't have the facilities, we don't have that sports culture, we don't have that, tournaments that these athletes can compete in day out to keep themselves fit. I think we're not sport oriented when it has to do with what we're seeing so far. That's why we've seen this decline. So I think if we can be able to put up ourselves down there, making sure that the sport is being taken seriously in the country, we would definitely, of course, surpass all over this country. The Kenyans are just good in terms of marathon race. Aside from that, nothing else. The South Africans as well, yes, they're good in 200 meters, 100 meters. But we have athletes that are also good in that. So if we can also develop ourselves in that, major in other sports, we can actually get ahead of these countries. So for me, I think we have to be very, very particular about developments in sport. And with that, I think we can be up there.
Well, let's stay away from the Olympics now, but just know that the first gold medal has been won, and it's been won by the People's Republic of China in shooting. Some African teams are really trying to get their parts in pre-Olympic games. Before the opening ceremony, we saw Morocco beat Argentina, Kingsley.
Yeah.
Guinea played at a 1-0 draw, I think, in their match. Hasn't been the Super Falcons of Nigeria as well. Lost their first game to the Femini of Brazil.
Yeah, it's been an impressive one so far. Taking a look at the results, we've seen Morocco, getting past Argentina, and that's one controversially. And as well, we saw Zambia couldn't get past the United States of America. Ladies ended 3 goals. Super Falcons, they lost by a lone goal to Brazil, and we hope, of course, they bounce back against Spain, which will be, of course, a very tough one. But we look forward to see how that particular one will be.
Well, that'll be the much we can give to you about the Olympics on this edition of Sports Extraordinary. But quickly, 1 or 2 things are happening around the world of football as well. It is off-season. But first, quickly, Kingsley, Nigeria here, Heartland FC of were relegated to the lower division, the National League. Yeah. We understand they are coming back to the Premier League, courtesy of buying off the space of Beyond Limits, one of the new entrants to the Premier League here in Nigeria.
Yes, that's actually what is on board at this moment. Heartland looking forward to bounce back in the Nigerian Premier Football League. We hear they've actually tabled about 300 million to Beyond Limits to get that slot. And from what we heard, that paperwork are ongoing, and they're waiting for the league board approval for them to come back, of course, to the league. That will mean a whole lot, for Heartland, and we hear they're also looking forward to getting Emmanuel Amunike to be the head coach of the side. For me, it will be a lovely one to see Heartland bouncing back with Emmanuel Amunike.
Well, that's the story we can bring to you this weekend from the Nigerian League. Across Europe, there are actions and movements, Kingsley?
Yeah, there are actions and movements. Well, Mr. Siri, before we take a look at that, we also got to report as well that, Rangers, they'll be playing their CAF Champions League game at the Gospel Akpabio International Stadium. The Nnamdi Azikiwe Stadium wasn't good enough, for them to host their matches as well. And for the likes of Remo Stars, it was such an impressive one that the stadium in Ikene was approved for CAF Champions League. And that's to tell you that, they've done a whole lot to make sure that that stadium, of course, is actually intact. So Rangers, they've now gotten their venue. Remo Stars also gotten their venue for the CAF Champions League. Economy Warriors, who understand, we're playing at the Moshood Abiola National Stadium. Nothing concrete yet for Enyimba Football Club. We don't know where they will play. Either they will play at their Bar Stadium or probably anywhere. I will keep our fingers crossed before next week for us to be able to get that one correctly. So for me, it's really not a very good one for Rangers, because this is just like playing away from home. The Gospel Akpabio is not their ground, even for Economy Warriors as well. And this has a way of affecting the performance of the teams in the continent. And improving infrastructure in the country is something, of course, we'll be beckoning on. And we hope that probably they will learn from this and see how they can improve the stadiums in the country. Just breaking, we understand that the International Olympic Committee has apologized to South Korea for mistaking the identity with that of North Korea. We understand the announcer at the opening ceremony did announce the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, meaning North Korea, and for South Korea, and that caused a lot of uproar. The South Korean delegation protested to the Olympic Committee, and now the Olympic Committee, International Olympic Committee, has come out to apologize. Kingsley, is this apology accepted by the South Koreans? I think they should take the apology, just as they can do. And don't forget, these two countries are they have some political crisis.
That's why it looks very serious.
Yes, they don't actually, they're not good friends, and that's why when that happened, they actually frowned. They were not happy, you know, at all, and for me, it was a very huge mistake, and I hope that this apology will be accepted. Well,
we have to wrap up the show this weekend, Sports Extraordinary, because we're running out of time already, but as usual, we'll end the program with our Sports Extraordinary for this weekend, and he has to be in memory of Nojim Mayogu, the man who won Nigeria's first medal at the Olympic Games. Kingsley, the Olympics is here 72 years after we are competing. We have to remember the man who won it the very first. He won it clearly in the boxing event. The first Olympic medal for Nigeria in boxing, came through boxing, and it was in the men's light middleweight category in the 71 kg class. Way back in 1964, that was at the Tokyo Olympic Games.
What in time? What in time?
That's over 60 years now, or just about 60 years. So yes, 60 years ago.
For me, I think it's lovely. It was actually a very good one. What a way, of course, for me to remember him and what he did, of course, for the country. And it was actually in boxing that is not really having the momentum at the moment. We hope at least this, remembrance and what he did, of course, will be able to elevate boxing down here. People will actually see it and look forward to see how they can bring back boxing to limelight.
60 years ago, Nigeria won our very first medal at the Olympic Games, and we came through Nojim Mayogu in the men's 71 kg class at the Tokyo Olympic Games. We remember him as we seek for medals at the Olympic Games. Can we get medal number 28 and even more at the Olympic Games? It will be even more interesting if it comes through boxing. And that will be it for this edition of Sports Extraordinary Weekend Edition. My name is Cyril. Definitely we'll be back next weekend with yet another very exciting edition of Sports Extraordinary. The Olympic Games is still ongoing. Let's hope for better medal returns from Team Nigeria.